Welcome to another fantastic episode of the Contractor Business Builder podcast. We have the honor of welcoming Adam Stark today to share more about him and how to get the most out of some cool software they've got. How you doing today, Adam?
Derek, doing great. It's a Friday, so always good energy, and I appreciate you having me on the show. Excited to be here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, really enjoy these days, and this week just flew by. So this is very happy right now to be talking with you. So you're the co-founder, CEO of Jet.Build. Can you tell us a bit about your background and the work that you do with Jet.Build?
Absolutely, yeah. So I started my career working for builders in New York City. So it was a family office type developer, owner, vertically integrated as well. So I went from doing in-house construction projects, remods, to full ground up construction where we hired externally. So I really had the opportunity to understand all phases and all kind of sides and perspectives of a project, whether that be managing a small job to in-house acting as GC to acting as developer and coordinating with the lender, right? So all sides, which is really neat, a great experience. And
Yep.
in that experience, what I recognized was the necessity for a central platform to manage, right? All of the teams, manage the data, manage the project, manage the funds, and coordinate accordingly across stakeholders. So that was
Mhm.
kind of the inception of Jet.Build and why it happened, coming from industry and really recognizing our own pain points.
Yeah, very cool. And good base of experience to then be creating, some software catered to that kind of a market and clientele. Can you maybe give us a bit of insight as to who's an ideal person, business owner to be using your software? I know it's more on like the developers or commercial. I feel like it's a pretty unique type of software for a
Mhm.
specific audience. Can you maybe share a bit more like who would be an ideal user of the JetBuild?
Yeah, great question. Absolutely. So we have two ICPs, so ideal customer profiles, and that will
Mhm.
be a general contractor or a developer owner. And what's interesting about that dynamic is naturally there will be and should be right overlap in that kind of use case or that product offering because collaboration has to happen in order for a project to succeed, right? So there's two angles to which we service our clients for a GC's perspective, it'll more so be from pre-con to closeout, and that'll also be a faster pace, call it, with projects because generally speaking, a GC will have more projects going on than a developer owner who's focused obviously specifically and only on their portfolio. And Jet will start supporting their process from pre-dev, so before GC is involved, right,
Yeah.
into asset management. So from a
Mhm.
developer's perspective, they're also leveraging that data, project data forward into managing those assets down the line through the life cycle of their properties.
Yeah, very cool. And I think also well aligned with GCs who are future forward looking and maybe they're planning to, have some of their own developments or get into some investing in real estate and their own projects as well, where, thinking forward, get started with the software and it has that room to grow and expand as the business grows. What are some common challenges that you're solving for developers and general contractors, with their project management or like you said understanding the portfolio and where everything's at? What's some common challenges and some solutions that you provide?
Yeah, absolutely. So our solution suite will run from the budget creation, bid management, so the kind of full on accounting suite, change order management, invoice management, payment applications. We got all of the standard construction operation solutions, whether that be scheduling for Gantt charts, critical path type scheduling, overlays, drawing management, RFI submittals, so on and so forth. So in these kinds of directions that will spread across the project, I think the core difficulty that we have in the industry as a whole, which is very logical if you think about it from an outsider perspective. You have a bunch of different companies who have, of course, different perspectives, different priority sets, right, across different projects and so on and so forth. So you need all of these companies to collaborate on this singular project, which may or may not be their number one priority. So we're trying to address first and foremost simplicity in collaborating and assigning tasks and understanding where teams are in a project. So, with what we like to call our modern tech stack, if you could think about whether it's your smartphone today, your computer today, and how that technology has evolved over the past, 10, 20 years only, right? I mean, it's very rapid evolution there. So what we've done is understood, we've come to understand industry standard, what exists in terms of software. We took our own pain points on how those softwares function, and we basically addressed or focus on, rather, I should say, simplifying process to the extent that we can. So we're taking industry standard across the product, whether that be the accounting solutions, the collaboration solutions, construction operations, reporting, so on and so forth, comms, communications. And we try to reduce as many clicks as possible. So to simplify collaboration across stakeholders on a project. So that'd be like first and foremost, our number one pain point that we try to address, our number one concern with the product, and our kind of theory of how to improve performance on job sites across teams from the lender to a site super and vice versa. So that'd be number one. Number two, which also revolves around modern technology, is we were able to build out our platform, which can run a single family home up into a master plan multi-billion dollar project. So it could be very simple, but it could also be very robust. And modern technology allowed us to develop our platform at a low overhead relatively to how softwares used to be developed. And that allows us to price in a very cost-effective manner. And why I bring that up in particular is if you're a GC or if you're a developer owner, you could onboard Jet and you'll have budget to now look at other niche specific solutions to plug into Jet as your core stack. So what I mean by that is a GC, for example, now has more budget space to leverage other technologies that will further help, the solution of efficiency on time and on budget projects, whether that be, AI safety, whether that be, better invoice management with their subs for an owner's perspective. Maybe that's, a financial management tool for how they're, collaborating with their lenders. Maybe it's a better, asset management platform to deal with their tenants. So what I'm saying is where Jet is coming in as a core tech stack solution, simplifying day-to-day operations and also increasing the ability to spend on technology budget.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And there is some pretty bulky softwares out there, to do kind of everything and anything, but nothing really that well.
Right.
Options. Whereas when you can get more specific, softwares that integrate and work with each other with the company's processes, you can essentially get better results because you're not just taking something very generalized and trying to make it work for your situation. You can actually be selective with the software stack that you're using and have Jet.Build as the common platform for the day-to-day operations, like you mentioned. As far as like project efficiency, accountability, keeping everybody on the same page and improving efficiencies, with schedules or whatever. What's some of the key components in Jet.Build, or how can users improve efficiency through the use of Jet.Build?
Yeah, it's such an interesting thought process, like a thing to consider. And the reason I say that is, you look at this like historical trend or lack of trend in construction, generally speaking, as it relates to productivity against other industries, for example, where like the percentage increase is relatively so lagging, that is in construction versus other industries. And, I go back to that core problem where I think construction is very unique, where again, you have all of these different parties involved in one project. Again, priorities are different, so on and so forth, like what I had just mentioned. We haven't seen anything change with solutions that, have been created in the past 20 plus minus years. So that's where I keep going back to simplicity, right? So if we're offering first and foremost unlimited users, right? So we encourage teams to onboard literally as many stakeholders as possible, as many project teams as possible, and then to simplify it to the extent where you have a trade, for example, on a project, they really only need to be, looking at a solution or understanding their spot in a schedule or their action items to what they've been assigned to. So, with access controls, you can issue them, reminders specific and only to what they need to address, right? So, but what I keep bringing up is this concept of simplicity, right? How do we make it easier for all teams to collaborate and to address their action items, to understand what their action items are, and for them to understand also how that kind of impacts the overall project? I think it's a really tough thing to solve. But again, I also believe that, going back to that kind of 1-2 punch of our core mission set, right, which is simplicity, and kind of price point also. So, simplify the core tech stack, simplify how people are collaborating and managing projects, and then also allow for additional, pointed solutions to plug in naturally, because you all of a sudden will have more budget space if you're using Jet as your core operation solution.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And the communication component of Jet and just in construction in general is it's so key to the success of projects and often so lacking. And I feel like if the technology or the solution is not overly intuitive or easy to use, people tend to go to the lowest common denominator of communication, which is either not communicating or just, trying to send emails or text messages, which, just kind of get lost in translation or,
Yeah.
and utilizing a nice platform and having the ability, like you said, to encourage like many users, unlimited users, I think is very unique to the software platform and a good step forward to the, you got to pay for every user or a certain limit of users. So we're going to limit who has access to this or who's communicating on this platform. It's no, like any, whoever it makes sense should be utilizing the platform and having one solid place to communicate. And yeah, just thinking back to like, projects that I've managed and project management, it's poor communication leads to so many lost opportunities and inefficiencies. And like how often have you thought you communicated with someone to realize later they didn't get the email or they didn't understand what you're saying. And, now you've missed a deadline or, some item wasn't ordered or some, quality checklist was only half completed or what have you. So yeah, good to hear that that those options are available. Having software in place, huge step forward. Actually using the software and having your team use it is another story. How do you encourage or support or suggest that general contractors, developers maybe roll up into a new software when they get started to actually not get overwhelmed, but utilize it in an effective way and get their team on board to using it effectively? What would be your suggestions or thoughts to that regard?
Yeah, totally. It's a great question. That's, number one, it has to start there, right? If people aren't using it, obviously it's irrelevant, it being software. So there's kind of, I'll just bucket, people, generally speaking, companies into two different categories. One is using existing platforms, and two is not using existing platforms, right? So those that are already accustomed to platforms, it tends to be a very easy kind of migration onto Jet because we leverage existing knowledge base, and all we've done is simplified what they're used to. So, if you're used to creating an RFI in 10 clicks, you're going to be able to do that in 2 to 3 clicks on Jet. So, and that just goes down upstream with the entirety of our product suite. Now, for those that are, for example, not used to using systems and they're, just on email or Excel, whatever it may be, it's to first and foremost, allow them or inform them to, come to this understanding that, okay, well, they are doing something somewhere. It's probably not as efficient as it can be. So now let's take their existing processes and essentially centralize and standardize it, right? So that's what we're doing at Jet. And in that process, we'll be very hands-on. And this goes for both types of clients, right? Existing platform users and non-existing platform users, where the kind of migration period, if you will, that's kind of what we'll call it, will be really customized to that specific client. So what that means is whether it's weekly calls, bi-weekly calls, whether it's doing training on those calls or literally onboarding data or, running through specific solutions with specific teams, right? Because you don't always have like one team or one PM that's using the entire software. You could have, site super, you could have a PM, you could have the accounting team. So it's really kind of addressing head on who will use what part of the software, going through a onboarding and training cycle, then ensuring that they are doing that with their data. What I mean by that is we could, demo our system with our example projects and share our screen, but at some point we'll transition to, okay, now this is your project, your data, your screen. Let's now run it so we can kind of hand you the keys after a period of 1 to 4 months plus minus.
Yeah, very cool. And like you mentioned where you could have like a developer and they like the GC would also have access to the software. Can you maybe speak to that where there's multiple companies possibly, or you've got kind of sub GCs or sub contractors, what does that look like? Is it more just like a communication piece and they have access to some of the data? Are they actually able to utilize the software underneath like a developer? How does that integration work when you have multiple companies that are utilizing the software?
So, I mean, if we want, for example, one license for the entire project, whether that be the GC who's owning that license or the developer owners owning the license,
Mhm.
that person has the ability to add all stakeholders and essentially issue access control. It kind of in a variety of ways, in a variety of levels, I should say. Right. So
Mhm.
that can be, all right, you have access to see budgets, generally speaking, or you have access to see your specific budget, and that could go to, for example, the level of trade as well, which can therefore roll up into a master budget, for example, a master project budget, right? So there's these levels of access controls where you can, again, add literally all project stakeholders, all project teams, issue them
Mhm.
access to what they need to see, what they need to access, and be responsible for and run your project accordingly. Now, if you have, for example, two license holders, then there's dozens scenarios that exist. I wish there was like a one uniformed answer, but people like to,
Mhm.
which is totally fair and
Yep.
fine. People like to, manage their projects and teams and this and that differently. So,
Mhm.
for example, it could be that the GC's data is going to push automatically into the developer's platform, or it could be that the both parties are only interested in their kind of respective verticals, meaning the developer might not care about the day-to-day construction operations, and therefore it'll just anyways be separate, and developer will focus on you know hosting important critical documents and the financial tools that Jet provides. So
Mhm.
those are kind of like the mix of ways in which we run it across teams, run Jet across teams.
Yeah, good. So it sounds like there's some flexibility,
Mhm.
a lot of optionality as far as roles or permissions and access and things like that. So yeah, that's great. As far as like mistakes that you see contractors making with technology, besides the not using it or not getting started on
Mhm.
it, what are some things that you maybe see from people that start to use Jet or even just technology as a whole? Like, what do you feel are some common mistakes or maybe myths of contractors and getting started with, utilizing technology?
Totally. So, I think the biggest upfront friction that we see is this concept of it's not the right time, or I'm not ready, or whatever the not right now quote unquote reason may be.
Yeah.
And what I always say to that is that statement is literally the reason why now is the right time, right? Because
Mhm.
first and foremost, there's never the quote unquote right time. I don't even know what that means, honestly. But it's like if
Mhm.
you're don't have any projects, is that the right time? I mean,
Mhm.
no, right? The sooner you kind of rip the band-aid, the better. The more efficiency that you'll gain, the lesser waste that you'll have, right? The better off you'll be, whether it's
Yeah.
financially or in terms of effectiveness. And to
Mhm.
that kind of statement of not now, it's not a good time, I'm using something else, this and that. That's why we bring up this migration plan that I mentioned before, where it's to say this will flex to what you need. It'll be custom to your timeline. But to get started, you gotta start looking at Jet. You gotta run our, whether it's weekly, biweekly, once a month, whatever the cadence is, to start allowing your
Mhm.
teams to understand platform, allowing your teams to start understanding how to, whether it's migrating off of a different solution or migrating off of Excel and
Yeah.
emails. You could either ramp it up real quick, and right, and we could be ready easily within a month, probably within
Mhm.
a few weeks even, but whatever, say a month plus minus. Or we
Yeah.
can go slowly until you are at that point of, okay, we've identified a project, we've run through that single project and found success. Now we're ready to scale it to our company. So going back
Mhm.
to kind of your question, when there is this friction, or the typical kind of I think error that people have is the unwillingness or the fear or the lack of energy, whatever that reason might be, to start looking at a platform that will create efficiency for your projects and save you money on
Mhm.
overhead. You got to just start, and be open to modern tech, having a simpler onboarding and effectiveness process than older
Mhm.
technology.
Yeah, it makes me think of the analogy of when's the right time to plant a tree, and it was 5 years ago or whatever, right?
Exactly.
Um, second best time is right now. And yeah, often it's like you want to wait for the right time, which essentially is you want to reap the benefits of whatever you're planning without, before you get started, which is like you want to be buff before you go to the gym kind of thing. You got to
Right.
get started, get through it. There's going to always be some friction and new things to learn and uncomfortable, whatever, moving from one thing to the next. But the sooner you get started, the sooner you're going to see benefits. And taking action becomes a habit at that point. What's some of the best advice that you received as an entrepreneur or in your life that you could share with us?
Yeah, whether it's entrepreneurship or life in general, any fellow entrepreneur will understand this. Where the ups and downs are just absolutely insane. It's hard to even explain or imagine unless you yourself experience it. So the best advice that I receive, and you got to realize it when it's happening on a down, is you got to keep moving forward, right? You have to understand how to I'll call it self motivate, right? So
Mhm.
what is your like end goal? Be cognizant of that end goal, or whatever your values are, your desires are, whatever kind of word you want to plug in there. Be mindful of that up front, so that when you're on a low, you had a bad week, a bad month, whatever it may be, that it'll be easier to remember or easier to acknowledge versus trying to figure out your goals on a low. That's really really really
Mhm.
difficult. So best
Yeah.
advice is, right, have your values, your goals set up front, remind yourself
Mhm.
of them frequently, and just keep pushing through.
Yeah. Great advice, and it can be very hard or unnatural maybe to follow when you're on those lows and it feels
Mhm.
like nothing's going right or you're struggling with whatever it may be. But realizing that yeah, life moves on, there's ups, there's downs. It's a natural part of the process. As you move forward and you have that vision, the ups become bigger and the downs become less as time goes on, and you do start to move into the future that you envision. But you can't always control the outputs, right? Stuff can
Mhm.
happen: family life, health, finances, business, whatever. But you can always control the inputs. And
Mhm.
that, like what you said, just got to keep pushing through. If you know that you're doing the right things to get you to where you want to be, up or down, you keep doing those leading indicators, those actions, you'll get to where you want to be for sure.
Mhm.
On that note, can you walk us through a journey of a client that you've worked with and kind of where they started when they got going with Jet.Build, and some of the outcomes and results from working together?
Yeah, I want to. It kind of goes along the lines of what I was explaining in terms of that like migration period, where it took a lot of effort to kind of break through that initial wall. This client was using an older platform. They were paying a lot of money for it, and just were generally speaking frustrated, which is why they were initially open to a conversation. However, kept
Mhm.
trying to kick a potential use of Jet down the road. Finally, we got
Mhm.
them to commit, to it. We started with once every 3 week calls, and then it, ramped up a bit more to every other week, and then ramped up more to once a week.
Yep.
Ran through both training, feedback loop, which is something we also really like to
Mhm.
differentiate ourselves with. Is when you're
Yep.
working, generally speaking, you should experience this if you're working with a smaller business with new technology. They should be able to implement feedback faster than a larger business, enterprise business, industry
Yep.
agnostic, right? That should be the case.
Mhm.
So ran through that cycle of feedback loop, which is also great for us, and we always appreciate it because that obviously allows us to improve and grow. Eventually got to identifying a single project where we, again, very hands-on in that process, getting started, making sure it was successful. Midway through, they finally realized they're comfortable with Jet. They really appreciated our service, that feedback loop process, and then opened up the reins to see their ROI for implementing Jet across their portfolio. So that was an
Mhm.
awesome, I'll call it first realization of why this kind of migration concept is so important. Because
Yep.
going back to what I said before, people tend to think, oh, it's this massive undertaking. Well, it's not, because it happens in stages and in phases. That's
Mhm.
comfortable for you, right? It's not going to be a light switch. Today you're working this way, tomorrow we're flipping Jet on, and you're 100% there. All your teams, all your
Yeah.
it's not that way, right? It's a process. And that first client that we helped through that process really was like a aha moment, mutually so, that we're now leveraging forward, and it's working out really well.
Yeah. That's great to hear. Three big things that I kind of pulled out of there, and there was a lot. The customer service, client,
Mhm.
support side of things, huge component by the sounds of it. And you guys really, care about making sure every client has the resources and support they need to make it, a home run and get them going, despite some of the friction from switching platforms or getting started with a new platform. So that's huge. The feedback part, love that. It's the 1% better every day kind of thing. And sometimes we think like, oh, we got to learn something new or always, try to be improving thing when often it's just having that sort of feedback loop of like, hey, this isn't quite working the way that it should be,
Mhm.
or hey, we're not quite sure about this, or, I think we could do this better, right? It's a natural sort of process where you just continue to improve and those small improvements like they add up big time over time. So that's really cool. For people who want to get started with Jet.Build, learn more about it, maybe take it for a test spin or connect with you guys to learn more about it, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, definitely. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Everyone
Mhm.
feel free to reach out to me directly there. Otherwise, on Jet.Build, we also have a chat on. You'll be able to chat with someone on our team, potentially me, depending on availability. That's Jet.Build. So rather than .com, it's .build. So hopefully that's that's an easy one to remember.
Mhm.
And on there, you'll be able to see all of or at least a lot of our solution suite. Again, you'll be able to chat with someone. You could reach out directly there to book a demo. Yeah, lots of options and ways to reach out.
Perfect. So yeah, we'll put links in the description of this, video or audio, depending where you're checking this out, to the website and to LinkedIn profile. Get connected, check it out. Well worth your time. And yeah, no reason not to reach out. Adam, any final words of wisdom or last sort of things you want to mention about Jet.Build? Kind of open floor. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, I like to just throw a shout out to all of the construction site teams out there, right? I mean, they're just awesome. Just
Yeah,
hard work, building everything for us, right? Whether that's home, school, hospital, business, whatever it may be, they're all awesome. I feel like
yeah.
they don't get enough credit, generally speaking.
Mhm.
So a nice shout out to them. And then last piece would be if anyone's interested in my podcast, feel free to have a look at that. The Veterans Who Build Show. It's about veterans in the built environment, going through their story and why built environment's an awesome place for veterans.
Yeah, fantastic. We'll put a link to the podcast as well in the description.
Awesome.
So go check it out, give it a listen. Thanks so much for coming on today, Adam, and sharing your expertise and some of the work you're doing with Jet.Build. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks, Derek. Appreciate you having me on the show. It was great to be here and had a great time.